Hello and welcome to another episode of my Let's Play World of Tanks. My name's Darkling and I'm from the WWPD clan, if you guys didn't know. It's also a podcast group at wwpd.net where we talk about Flames of War and any other miniatures, board games, hobbies, stuff like that. So we're just the group from there, and if you're new to joining me, welcome. Otherwise, we'll keep going. So this is my first look at the 7.0 patch that just came out today. And the reason I'm sitting in my garage is because I needed to show you what took place here. A few of the first noticeable things here is it now tells you what server you're on. Up here it says I'm on server Watt, which is the North American server, I'm assuming. But in addition to that, we now have service, which is standard as always, gives you your ammo, supplies, everything else. But we also now have the exterior button. So when we go into the exterior, it brings us into the camouflage. And you can choose if you want to permanently put on camouflage, and it costs you some cash here. If you want to do 30 or 7 days, and it differs by tier as to how much it's going to run you to put the camo on. But camo basically is actual historic camo that skins out on your tank so everyone can see. So let's say I want to put on the Sicily North African campaign camo. There we go. It would run me 175 gold to put it on as a permanent thing. Or I could put it on for a couple days or a month. Now, each one gives you the different listing as to where it was, what years it was in place, and just a little brief history on it. You have your general 2-tone and your 3-tone. So you can change it up as to however you want. You can purchase it, put it on there. I honestly don't really want to do that. I kind of like the historical, just plain and simple look at my tanks. But that is actually historic per nationality. So what was on this T-29 is going to differ from this Tiger. The King Tiger rather, because I could put on the early war camo, which technically would be not historic, or I could put on the 3-tone P-dot ammo or camo, which is the historic for probably what this thing would have seen. Yeah, the 44 through 45. So you have that option. You can do the 3-tone, 2-tone, like I said. Each camo's dependent on your nationality. So as a light tank, it's obviously a lot cheaper here to put on the camo than it was with those super heavies. I could put on whatever I wanted, the snow camo or anything. And then it would be viewable to every other player in the game. Whereas you can just skin your tanks for your own personal use. Now you can skin them with camo, so everyone can use them. Alright, so let's go ahead and hop in a game, and we'll try and point out some things that happen in game. So as you can see here, the loading screen is actually a little bit different now. Things are a little bit prettier, things are a little bit laid out differently. And I'm also back to having no mods right now because I was having issues which required me to restart the game, or reinstall the whole game from scratch. So here's some main things in the battlefield. Right now you can see the whole, oh, I got my mouse out here. You have the names and everything else listed in very big things here. I have my screen on 720. I'm sure if you're at 1080 it'd be a little different. But you could change how much you want displayed. Nothing at all, just a smidge, or their names kind of like how it used to be. That's how I kind of like it, so that's what I'll go with. Additionally, as I rev up here to head out this way, some things in here. Exit battle's now at the top. Settings, you can now record your games right here, enable battle recording. So that can allow you to review the game afterwards, which actually may change up the way I record things. We'll have to find out in the future. I'm not exactly sold on it yet, need to test it, see how it works, see how I like it, but maybe I'll play around with it, see what I think. So, beyond that, the reason why I'm running the SU-152 here is because HE is significantly changed. As soon as I get into position here, I will describe how. Another thing that you can see actually at the bottom of my screen, right here, is my camo. It'll go into effect and it will highlight green once it's in effect. That's the same for any other attachment that you have going, either binoculars, the reduced reticle, everything else. Everything except the auto reload, because that's always active. So anything that takes time to set up will sit there and will go green the moment that it actually becomes active. And you saw that spotting icon, like that, on the minimap there. It shows who's spotted and where that person is. This gives you a better idea of who's shooting what and where they're shooting. And you see all that nudging around like that took away my camouflage, but now I'm back to my camouflage. It's fine. If I lock down my hole, there we go. Moving my gun around doesn't affect the camouflage. I'm good to go. So the icons on the team, everyone's a little bit darker now. The red is a little bit brighter, so is the green. So a little bit different. But as I was saying, the HE rounds operate a little bit differently than they did before. Now you have to actually aim your HE at certain specific weak points. Whereas previously, if you hit anywhere on the tank, what would happen is the moment of the area of impact would create a radius bubble in which anything within that bubble was a valid target, and it would then select the weakest armor from that radius, no matter if it could see it or not, and then the damage would be applied. That's why you were able to get crazy damage, like 400, 500 damage on tanks that had super armor. Now, it's a little different. What happens is now you are required to aim a little bit differently. You need to really place your shots, because what happens is now instead of a circle radius for its area of attack, it actually picks out a line of sight. So I missed there. But what would happen is at the moment of impact, it does the same radius as it used to, except this time, the moment it touches a surface, instead of passing through it and selecting everything, it stops right then and there. So, what does that mean? You need to really pick your shots, and probably you should aim for the turret, because what it will do is it'll see all around the turret, and it'll see the top of the tank's hull, and that's probably the weakest part of the tank that it's going to be able to damage, is the top of the tank's hull. So if you're not able to get a side shot, definitely aim for the turret near the gun, or near any place in which it has an overhanging area so you can get to like the top armor of the hull as opposed to the turret, and you'll be able to do some pretty good damage that way. Of course, now it's a lot less accurate, I'm finding, because I'm not hitting nearly as well as I used to. But, with that said, that could just be my luck at the moment. But yes, now you need to really watch your aim, because your hits are not going to do nearly as much damage if you're just randomly shooting. Really need to be careful. But, that shouldn't be a problem, so long as I can hit. Again, the key there is hitting. Alright. Nudge over a bit. Of course, that guy's going to get in my way. I don't want to hit him. Take the shot anyway. See, we hit him. I couldn't see how much damage we did. Of course, like I said, I disabled my mods. But, it's a little bit different than how it was previously. Again, your damage is only based on what it can see now, as opposed to being able to hit pretty much anything and everything in the radius. So that does make a huge difference when you're targeting where you want to target. Of course, I'm still missing. So, with that said, your radius has definitely changed, or the way the HE works is a lot different. But, in addition, so is the armor. And I will describe how armor works in the next battle.
Time to roll out.
Another neat thing is this little radius, or area that you're looking at thing on the map. It's very bright green. You can see where it is that you're aiming or looking. So it gives you a very nice representation. If you're looking, you see a tank maybe way out here at the end of your range, you know where he is in your line of sight. Now, as I was saying, with the armor groups, they had originally started with 8 armor groups on the tanks. Basically 8 hitboxes, of which someone could hit you and do damage. Now, there's double that amount. There's now 16 different armor, or hitboxes rather, for lack of better terms, in which people can now hit you and do damage. And that's a significant amount. It's double what there used to be, so that means you can find your targets and find your weak spots a little bit better. And hopefully, with that, you can do damage to tanks before that you normally weren't able to, or at least you'd be able to get in those critical hits a little bit easier than you used to with your previous tanks. So, all in all, it's a great thing they now updated that, gave you double the amount of hitboxes. Yes, it might work against you. And as you hear in the background, we're being captured and we have air raid sirens going. It's a very subtle tone, but it is representing exactly what's going on. They're capping our base. There's now a nice audible alert to let you know that. So now there's not a problem at all. You should now never be able to not know that's going on. Of course, it's a little low on my volume, but I'll have to adjust it later. In addition, besides the extra hitboxes, there's also a nice little feature to let you know when you're fully zoomed in. I'll let it zoom in a bit here. And there you go, a small little tweak noise representing that, indeed, you have fully zoomed in, and that you are now able to fire with your full accuracy. Certainly an awesome, awesome effect. Makes a huge difference. Of course, you can still take your pot shots as you want. I'm not able to get that T-28 anymore like I used to. So I'm gonna have to back off and stay away from him. He's pretty deadly. I'll try and hit this guy though. And I'll bounce off his top. Okay. So yes, you have double the hitboxes now. You have warnings and alerts for certain different effects, such as the fully zoomed in and the aiming at your base being captured. In addition to the thing on the map that allows you to see where you're aiming. Okay, there we go. So, with that, some great improvements have been made. There's also an additional 2 maps, which hopefully I'll be able to show off, provided I can find them, or get into matches with them. There's no guarantee of that, but it will be nice. So, all in all, HE's been changed around. There's been quite a few updates to the tanks as well. There's now different hitbox criticalities, different HP values for the hitboxes, are the ammo racks as well. Just all sorts of different little tweaks have been done to the game to help improve it, make it a little better and more fair and even. Now, that being said, there's a whole bunch, more than I can list. You would actually have to go to the World of Tanks website and be able to look it up. From there you could easily tell what the changes are, what's been made, and what's been done. And, overall, it's for the better. There's a lot of changes. Not everyone will agree with them at first, but... And I shoot at a target that I have no reason to shoot at. But yeah, so overall, a lot of good changes, a lot of very useful stuff. Try and swing around and take out these tanks over here. The low and the T-28 especially. There's the low.
Nice shot.
Gotta watch out because he's gonna aim over at me now. So, overall, much better game. Much more representative of history now that they actually have the ammos, the skins. The hitboxes certainly make it a little bit better because now you're able to actually target things properly and hit the correct weak spots. And overall, just patches are always a good thing. New and improved stuff is always good. Hopefully I don't get killed here. There's an IS and a KV-1S. So, there's a few other things I'm missing. Like I said, the maps, which there are the fjords, and there's also the swamps. I have not played either, but from what I've been told, the swamps, kind of an open battlefield. It's very sparse in terms of cover, and a whole lot of different... I need to go and play it, but from what I'm told, there's not a lot of options. It's very open, very easy to get trapped and not notice it. And just in general, it's an open battlefield. It's one of your artillery dreams. In addition to that, the fjords supposedly is very straightforward, very much like the Mountain Pass map that exists now. So with a little bit of practice, it shouldn't be too hard to figure out the map. But in addition to that,
We finished him off.
just practicing the different maps, you'll eventually learn the strategies and following where the groups go. Overall though, the only other things I can think of for this, that I read at least, haven't really experienced them yet. I'll have to go and experiment and find out as soon as I take care of this tank. I was get stuck trying to zoom around here. Again, just all different little UI modifications certainly is great. The recording the battlefields will change up the way I record. I'm sure I'll be using that as a fallback in case I miss a match, whereas I still like to do live gameplay.
Enemy is hit.
And just, again, installing the mods, you want to give it a little bit before you install your mods. You want to give it some time just because of the fact that it might take a little bit for them to update everything.
Critical hit.
So, I know I haven't installed them all again. I will probably have to do that sooner or later. Let's see if we can get a map, or get into one of the new maps.
Move out.
So, here's one of the new maps. This one, of course, being the fjords. Should have been able to tell that by just looking at the map here. So, On top of the new maps, there's a few other things that I didn't mention yet. For one, the IS-3's turrets have actually been reversed. The upgraded turret was originally the Type 10, I believe, or T10 turret, but it is now the IS-3 turret, thus making it the historic turret being the upgrade, and the prototype turret being the starter turret. It's kind of a wash either way. Both turrets seem to work just fine in my opinion, so I'm sure they just tweaked them a bit to work them out, but otherwise, not a big deal. It was all worked out just fine. Now, as for artillery, artillery's been heavily modified now to receive less credits. A lot of tanks have received about, I believe the average is 30 credits, or 30% credit reduction. Apparently someone's going to have to head back to base here. But yes, it's about a 30% credit reduction across the board. Primarily the Americans got hit hardest. A few tanks getting 70%, a few getting, or not 70, 50%, a few others just getting slightly smaller. But overall, the SPGs now earn less credits, and they also are now doing less damage with the way that the HE rounds work.
Enemy is hit.
So overall, there's a major steer going away from the idea of using SPGs and HE in general. It's now moved more towards trying to steer people more towards your mediums and your other tanks like that. Your mediums, heavies, and tank destroyers. But a final thing, which is actually probably the most interesting and most thrilling for a small clan such as my own, is the fact that now company battles are tier restricted, with them being tiers 10, 8, 6, and I believe 4. And of course, with everything else inside those tiers scaling, such as the SPGs and tank destroyers and scouts. So, I think the most popular one is obviously going to be tier 6, because it gets away from the use of the very, very popular Type 59. And so the
Critical hit.
So the tier 6 group is probably going to be one of the best groups out there in terms of competitiveness, especially for your smaller groups and everyone else in there. And again, I'm sorry I left TeamSpeak off. So, with that said, tier 6 probably will be the new main focus. You'll see a lot of people getting up a really super elite tier 6 tank, and going with that, and seeing just generally how they do. As that's probably going to be our plan. We're going to go arrange some tier 6 games and see what we can do through there. Now, with that said though, what tier 6 of all of them would you recommend? Obviously SPGs are limited to tier 4, but that being said, which of the tier 6 or tier 4 tanks would you recommend? I have my personal preferences, but needless to say, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I'm open to different options because I might try and pick one that I've never tried before. So, let me know which which tanks you guys prefer for tier 6. I'll try and pick one up in the next company battle. I'll start using it. Other than that, I'm currently doing a World of Tanks map review slash, how should I word it? A World of Tanks map analysis and strategy on the What Would Patton Do website. That is wwpd.net. It is a weekly series on Wednesdays. I usually put out one map and I give an analysis of it and what could potentially help you out and what generally you see on the maps. So if you want to go there and check it out, otherwise follow the podcast, usually bi-weekly, released on Mondays. I will be featured this Monday, which will be on December, jeez, I gotta look at my calendar, December 19th. And of course, as always, my Twitter is down in the description below. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate any ratings and comments, and I always try and answer them. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next episode.